ending 16 months of national fascination with the fall from grace of a man who has been on the national stage for a quarter of a century.
All right, Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
The ultimate moment of pressure and attention for a man who has lived with full measures of both. A graceful and powerful athlete who rewrote record books, but a public figure with something more, the ability to connect and cross over, the facility to take his sports success and build on it. Before he was the ultimate defendant, O.J. Simpson was a Hall of Fame hero, a tangible part of history.
The Los Angeles Police Department right now is actively searching for Mr. Simpson.
For the past 16 months, a man who had heard the cheers of millions even after he ran off the playing field was fighting for his life.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Once, he embodied the word hero. Tonight, O.J. Simpson is free with the rest of his life to try and recapture what was. Good evening and welcome to the Sportscenter special. I'm Bob Lee. It is likely that everyone in America will remember years from now where they were at 10 a.m. Pacific time today when, after a wait of 19 hours, the jury's verdict was unsealed in Los Angeles Superior Court, ending what had come to be known as the trial of the century for one of the century's leading sports figures.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information. Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the State of California versus Orenthal James Simpson. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Ronald Lyle Goldman.
O.J. Simpson's acquittal unleashed a torrent of emotions among the principals in this case, family members and legal professionals. It evoked reaction from throughout the country, reaction seen oftentimes today along racial lines. The acquittal produced a million voices, except one. O.J. Simpson's. He has yet to speak, but he did issue a statement read by his son, Jason.
I'm relieved that this part of the incredible nightmare that occurred on June 12, 1994 is over. My first obligation is to my young children, who will be raised the way that Nicole and I had always planned. My second obligation is to my family and to those friends who never wavered in their support. But when things have settled a bit, I will pursue as my primary goal in life the killer or killers who slaughtered Nicole and Mr. Goldman. They are out there somewhere. Whatever it takes to identify them and bring them in, I'll provide somehow.
This jury felt the prosecution hadn't proven this case, and when ultimately you talk to them, that's going to be where they came down.
It was clear, at least it is to me, and I think other members of the prosecution team, that this was an emotional trial. And apparently their decision was based on emotion that overcame the reason.
I'm not bitter, and I'm not angry. But I'd also like to thank the lawyers on our prosecution team. I am honored to have
this prosecution team didn't lose today. I deeply believe that this country lost today. Justice was not served.
The trial of the Heisman Trophy winner and the 2,000-yard NFL rusher saw a jury sequestered for 265 days, considering 126 witnesses and over 850 exhibits. ESPN legal analyst Don Wigger has been watching the trial throughout for us. Don, was this simply a verdict on the evidence, or was it more than that? Was it a statement, as Johnny Cochran had asked for?
I think it is exactly what Johnny Cochran said in our little piece that we just did. This jury had a reasonable doubt. It was an easy verdict for them. I don't think it was an emotional thing that had anything to do with race at all. I think it had to do with the fact that the defense raised a reasonable doubt as to corruption, compromise, and conspiracy in this case.
You don't believe race played any factor in the deliberations?
I think it played a factor only in the credibility of Furman, and I think that was a very powerful part of the case. But it wasn't a race case in any other sense, in my opinion.
Okay, Don, thanks a great deal. We'll be back in a minute in the Sportscenter special to consider exactly what did win the case for the Simpson Dream Team of attorneys and what lost it for the L.A. District Attorney's Office. O.J. Simpson is home tonight for the first time in 473 days. Home in affluent Brentwood, California, the Los Angeles where Simpson made his life as a national celebrity. But Simpson's fame was grounded on the football field through most of his NFL career in Buffalo. O.J. Simpson was the central figure of many Buffalo winters, and Jimmy Roberts reports that may be that city which knows him best and feels most deeply tonight.
If O.J. Simpson was just another point of light in L.A.'s overcrowded constellation of celebrity, in Buffalo, he was the brightest star.
He's such a legend in our city and a hero, and whenever he'd come to the stadium, you know, he got more cheers than anything else that was going on during the game. We miss him, we miss his presence in the community.
And so they gathered Tuesday afternoon, each putting aside the daily chores, no matter how important.
Well, at this point, I guess our case takes a back seat to this at this point. So we'll wait to see what the outcome is, and then with clear heads, we'll do our best for our deliberations.
As 1 o'clock approached, pulses quickened. As life slowed in Buffalo, the town became silent. And then...
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of...
I'm just really thankful. You know, I'm really grateful for this. It's like, praise the Lord.
Just being an avid fan of the Bills, I'm glad to see O.J. go free. The juice is loose again.
For all the public elation, though, there was anonymous anger. The airwaves were marked with the dissent that made this such a contentious issue nationwide.
Just thinking about it makes my blood boil. I can hardly work now because I'm just thinking about the little smile on his face and how he thought, oh, I'm free.
Is it just a coincidence that we have a nearly all-black jury? A black defendant kills 2 white people, and he goes scot-free?
Over at Rich Stadium, the Bills had a day off after Monday's win at Cleveland. Still, there were opinions to be found.
I guess there was reasonable doubt. Who am I to say, because I wasn't there to hear all the arguments. So it's just sad that 2 people are dead. I just hope they find whoever did it.
I'm glad to see it finally come to conclusion. I'm glad to see O.J. get off, and my prayers go out to the families of the 2 people that have passed away, but, you know, we have to go on.
For much of America, the trial of O.J. Simpson was a sideshow, an outrageous issue for debate, but still comfortably distant. Here in Buffalo, though, it was something else entirely. It was personal. The Bills, remember, are unconditionally adored here, and this was perhaps the most famous of all Bills. So while there is dissent as to the verdict, there is one thing about which most people here in Buffalo seem to agree today. As far as the trial is concerned, they're glad it's over. Reporting from Orchard Park, I'm Jimmy Roberts, ESPN.
Thank you, Jimmy. In that magic season of 1973, when O.J. Simpson ran for 2,003 yards in a 14-game season, Simpson ran behind a remarkable offensive line. You remember the Electric Company. Simpson always gave that line full credit for the record. One of the best, if not the best, players on that fabled line was Reggie McKenzie, now the director of player programs with the Seattle Seahawks. Today, Reggie McKenzie reflected on his friend's acquittal.
I'm concerned now for his life, because as I said earlier, there are some people out there who honestly believe that he committed this crime. I think there's a lot of quacks out there, and somebody may just take a pot shot at him or something. I really feel strongly about that now, and that's something I will indicate to him.
Reggie McKenzie, who was there every yard of the way for that record and that moment that may define O.J. Simpson, the athlete, more than any other. Still ahead on this Sportscenter special this evening, we'll examine the issue of domestic violence among athletes, specifically in football, something that has been highlighted by the Simpson trial. The future for O.J., can he return to a career in the public eye after the past 16 months? And what did win the day for the Dream Team? The moments and the key decisions leading to the acquittal for the Juice. All ahead. There were many elements and subplots at play during the O.J. Simpson trial. The celebrity and the reputation of the defendant, the so-called race card in a city still tense from the riots of 1992. Simpson was on trial, but the defense game plan was successful in putting also on trial the system that accused the football star of 2 murders.
It's no disguise. It makes no sense. It doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
And the jury did, with stunning speed and certainty after 9 months of testimony.
All right, records reflect that Mr. Simpson has both gloves.
The gloves didn't fit, and the jury did acquit in a case which never did produce a murder weapon or any eyewitnesses. The prosecution's considerable circumstantial evidence may have been lost under an avalanche of scientific data, where the inconsistencies of work by the LAPD and other authorities may have raised the reasonable doubt that acquitted Simpson. Simpson is a free man tonight, perhaps because of time. Time, the issue of the only testimony reread to the jury, the account of limo driver Alan Park. Time, the main thrust of the prosecution's closing argument. Time, which the defense said Simpson did not have to commit the murders.
We said that if we could shatter the prosecution's timeline so that O.J. Simpson couldn't have committed this crime, that there would be a reasonable doubt. That's even before we ever got to the socks, the glove, and Furman or anything else.
Strategy played a part. The decision to use the testimony of Detective Mark Furman with his history of violence and racism even before the existence of the tapes became known.
Mark Furman is a lying, perjuring, genocidal racist.
And you say on your oath that you have not addressed any black person as a nigger or spoken about black people as niggers in the past 10 years, Detective Furman.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
Let's go with the practice movements. Niggers. So you say. I just practice my kicks.
This was an emotional trial, and apparently their decision was based on emotion.
The defense saying it was cool reason that won this case, and the prosecution saying anything but. Again, I am joined by ESPN legal analyst Don Wager. Don, pivotal moment, pivotal strategic decision in this trial. Can you put your finger on it?
Yeah, 2 of them, I think. The disastrous decision by the prosecution to have O.J. Simpson try on the gloves when they didn't know if they'd shrunk or not. And the decision calculated by the prosecution to call Furman as a witness with the hope that somehow his racism would never surface in the case. Both backfired on the prosecution.
Criminally now, O.J. Simpson is not guilty. He is an innocent man. There are civil suits out there. Now, there's a different standard in a civil suit. Explain that.
Well, first of all, not guilty means not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't have an innocent verdict. Most people will give a person the benefit of the doubt if he's been acquitted, but that's not going to be true in the civil case. There it's just a preponderance of the evidence, 51% versus 50. There's going to be a strong civil suit here by the Goldmans, who I think will seek a judgment against O.J. Simpson and will never settle their case.
Thanks, Don. Nice work on the trial. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
O.J. Simpson has been found innocent on charges of murder, but his trial has focused attention on the issue of domestic violence that is making news in the NFL. Ahead, how attitudes have changed throughout football on this issue. Also tonight, what the future may hold for O.J. Simpson. Will he be back in the public eye? Simpson's own words on that as we continue. The last thing the Simpson jury was presented in closing arguments, you might remember, was the montage of sounds and pictures detailing alleged and proven domestic violence by O.J. Simpson against his late wife. The issue of domestic violence has spread to the playing field. Warren Moon's wife, Felicia, in her affidavit filed 3 months ago, told police, quote, "I feared for my life. I saw black and could not breathe." This in her domestic violence complaint against her husband. Andrea Kramer now on how this issue is changing life around the NFL. Andrea?
Bob, in the past 3 months, there have been 3 highly publicized cases of domestic violence involving NFL players. The Vikings' Warren Moon, the Dolphins' Irving Spikes, and the Bengals' Dan Wilkinson. Now, with Simpson's acquittal, we examine what impact the Simpson case has had on current NFL players.
It's a lot harder for us to get out of the trouble now than it was, shall I say 3 years ago. I mean, 3 years ago, you smacked your girl around, people say, you know, hey, oh, well, maybe she asked for it. But nowadays, whether she asked for it or not, you're the one that's they're gonna haul you off.
What O.J. Simpson has done is to change perceptions. For the first time, we see the problem, and we cannot deny the problem. That is a change in perception.
You think that there have been changes due to O.J.?
Oh, there definitely have been changes. I don't, you know, care what anybody else says. You know, I quietly call them the O.J. rules.
The O.J. rules, unwritten yet understood. Because of the heightened sensitivity and increased attention in the last year, the penalties for committing domestic violence are more severe in the media, the courts, and in the NFL. But do the so-called O.J. rules really exist?
People are reaching and they're copping out if they're thinking that there's a new set of rules. The rules, you know, for years have been never to hit anybody. And now if these people are maybe just afraid that they're getting caught and that it's becoming public. So now they're saying, well, yeah, things have changed, society has changed.
I think they realize now that it's not something that they're just going to get away with and that people are going to think is okay. You know, it's not going to be tolerated because it sheds a bad light on the whole organization when that type of thing happens. And we got to realize it's a business, and when it comes down to it, that type of thing is bad for business.
I certainly believe that all teams do feel the pressure, and it's something that you can't ignore and hope it goes away. I think in the past, things like that you hoped would disappear, and they don't.
I don't think it's had an impact on the players in the league. I don't think it's had an impact on the average man who may be a batterer. I think what it's had an impact on is women who have been putting up with this abuse finally saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to get mocked for coming out.
911, do you have an emergency? 911. 9-8 police. What's the address?
Don't take my children nowhere.
What is the address?
You are f***ing stupid. I ain't got to take your bullshit.
Ma'am?
The voice is not that of Nicole. It's Stacy, wife of Dolphin Reserve running back Irving Spikes. In August, Spikes was arrested for domestic battery, and the Dolphins publicly addressed the issue.
He will be required to undergo counseling in conjunction with a club program already in place.
Most of the people we've talked to, whether it's league people, other coaches, players, say Don Shula would never have come out that publicly a couple of years ago.
That's probably true, because none of us were aware of the problem that we now are so much aware of because of the O.J. Simpson case and the attention that's drawn to domestic violence.
When Irving Spikes was arrested 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it might have been a paragraph in the newspaper. It might have been an issue that the Dolphins would have simply addressed with a press release. Now, Don Shula has to hold his own press conference. That was packed. You would have thought they had made a monumental trade. It was their third-string running back who had gotten in trouble. That is because of the O.J. Simpson case.
Consider the two other recent incidents of domestic violence involving NFL players, Dan Wilkinson and Warren Moon.
What is happening today now is that more attention is being brought to it if it happens to a player or a high-profile type of guy, and that's what the players have to understand, that when I go through a situation like I go through compared to an everyday guy, if it happens to him at his home, it's not going to be blown up the way it is with me.
People see the humiliation that the players that do these sort of things suffer. They see in Warren Moon's case the way the kids were crying and what they suffered. And they can relate that to their family or their situation, say, hey, I don't want to be in this situation, I need help.
Another motivation for change is fear. Fear of losing a job, tarnishing an image, hurting marketability. Moon's troubles may have cost him a Burger King endorsement, according to his agent, Lee Steinberg. Steinberg also said some clients told him that NFL security cautioned players against holding a press conference like Moon did because it's seen as an admission of guilt. A league spokesman denied this, but said players were advised of their legal rights. Clearly, for some, there are reasons to keep these incidents private.
Well, we had a client that was accused of a domestic problem, and what we mainly did, and what was important to us, was to keep this situation under control, to keep it out of the media, to keep it where it didn't hurt the player, because several reasons. One, the player was an unrestricted free agent and was in the middle of signing with a new club. And obviously, when those things come out, they can be damaging to the player, to his career.
The Dolphins told Irving Spikes, if this happens again, we're going to let you go. This is now going to affect their livelihood, their income, and their careers.
Now to say because they have the vehicles to punish you, now you have to watch your step, I think is just a total cop-out, because whether you have anything to lose or not, you shouldn't do that, and you never should have.
Regarding the Moon, Spikes, and Wilkinson cases, each player and his wife or girlfriend is currently in counseling. Each player still faces a pretrial hearing, although a settlement will probably be negotiated. The deals would include possible fines and probation and community service. Now that the O.J. Simpson trial has ended, Bob, you have to wonder if awareness in and enlightenment about the domestic violence issue will end as well.
All right, thanks, Andrea. Next up, O.J.'s future. Will he go back to television? Well, he'll tell us about it in his own words, and also reaction from the White House to the verdict as we continue.
This is a statement from the President. The jury heard the evidence and rendered its verdict. Our system of justice requires respect for their decision. At this moment, our thoughts and prayers should be with the families of the victims of this terrible crime.
That statement from the President. O.J. Simpson's future, whether he wants it or not, will be played out in public. There are civil suits to deal with for alleged wrongful deaths. Simpson's children with Nicole, 9-year-old Sydney and 7-year-old Justin, are still in the custody of Lou and Juditha Brown. O.J. Simpson has to apply to probate court to reacquire custody of his children. Then there are Simpson's professional plans. His legal defense reportedly cost him most of a $10 million personal fortune. The book that he published last year made a 7-figure profit. It is considered likely that Simpson's first substantial comment on the trial and the murders will be made in a pay-per-view interview. Will Simpson return to his television work? At the time of his arrest, he was under contract to NBC Sports. And Dick Ebersol, the president of NBC Sports, tonight said he stands by his comment of 10 months ago, recounting a visit to Simpson in jail.
And I said, when the time comes, if you're free of these horrible circumstances, we can sit down and cross the bridge of your future employment. And he looked me in the eye and he said, I don't think I ever want to do any of that stuff again. I want to get my kids, and I want to move a long way away, and I just want to enjoy them.
Simpson's Bronco chase, which, by the way, was never introduced in that trial. That chase occurred right in the middle of NBC's coverage of the NBA Finals in June of '94. O.J. Simpson acquitted at home tonight. More on ESPN on the next Sportscenter, 11 Eastern Time. We'll also have complete post-game coverage of the 4 divisional playoff games tonight in Major League Baseball, and we have a final word in a moment.